Just getting that going now. For a couple of other people. I just want to manage our time. There's a couple of things. Our standard process for these Obvio calls is that we will just take questions. Some people, let me just double check. Yeah, there's no questions have been posted on the dashboard yet. We tend to take questions that are posted on the dashboard and work through those. We take people as they raise their hands and take some questions along that way. And then, of course, if there's any announcements or changes or anything. So we've got a busy day today. We've got all of that. We've got some announcements. We've got some changes that I think everyone will be interested in. And then I'm sure there's a couple of other questions that people might have. And then Ben's here for the first time from Worry Studios, which massive setup in Vegas that uses Obvio for a bunch of events. And so there's some specifics that we're going to work through with Ben as well. It makes sense to be able to talk through some of the features of Obvio that scale really well. But often, as we often say, that if it works big, it works small. And so there are certain things that we'll talk through that will benefit everyone. So I think maybe, Justin, we could just go through the announcements first, the changes. Do you want to lead a bit of that? I can set up a screen share to show the settings if you want to talk about some of the other stuff there.
If you want to just set that screen share up, we can just walk through them all.
Okay, great.
I think it would be easier just for people to see most of them.
See it. Mm-hmm. All right, let me do that. All right, here we go. There. Okay. So
first things first, Grant, is there is a Zoom settings button right next to the new area button.
What? Yeah.
But there are a slew of settings in there, so we can turn back on reactions because they've been turned off in Obvio meetings for a bit. I know Dr. Joe was in here several weeks ago asking about transcripts, so we can now actually turn on the transcripts within Zoom, as well as the far end camera control if your camera supports it, to be able to control somebody's camera on the other side of Zoom. And then a bunch of recording settings.
Muddy can't press the button quick enough.
Well, just have a quick clarification between transcripts and captions. Sure. Sometimes people use those interchangeably, but I know technically they're different. So just want to.
Yeah, that's right. We can sort of deep dive a little into each of these. Just quickly on, firstly on reactions. At the moment, the default now is that you only get the raise a hand is the only reaction as a default. When you enable this, it gives you a bunch of extra ones, which is sort of like the love heart, and there you go, Muddy, showing the love heart and a few other reactions. We had a need to be able to default that to just standard reactions for a very, very large event. And it made sense that now defaults to off. And now it'll be a choice as to whether you enable that specifically to allow extra reactions. So that's that one. Thanks, Muddy. Transcription is distinct from captions. When captions in Zoom is essentially showing a couple of lines as it's happening. You can see the text showing up as a caption of what is being said. Transcript will open another box, and you can get the history. You can go back and see the whole history of the event that you're on. We generally, we default that to off. That's not something that we want. Often on our events, we don't necessarily want people to be able to just simply go back and copy and paste, all the content from what could be a highly paid event. And we also don't want people going back and saying, quoting things that people have said and taking it out of context and all of that, right? So you use that carefully. This is where you can go back and you can, basically for the whole meeting, you can see all of the transcript available. This is different. Amelia, we'll get to your question. This is different from transcripts being available in the recording post-event. Okay, yeah, that's still the same. That maintains you still get access to transcripts post-event. This is transcripts, real-time transcript in meeting, and being able to see history of the transcript. Let me just say, most people will not need this, but it was something that a couple of people have requested, and when we were turning on some of these features, we made it available. Far end camera control is another one like that. I'm not sure I've had anyone request it, but we're like, why wouldn't we enable it? Because it is kind of cool, right? If you have the right type of camera, some of the little pan tilt zoom cameras, even the Insta360 link cameras that we recommend often, you can have one of these sitting in a meeting, and then you can control it through Zoom, meaning up, down, in, out, all of that. I tell you where it's really nice and handy is where we call them like a witness camera. It's kind of like almost like a security camera, but in some places, in virtual environments where you might have a studio that may not have an audience, but it has a studio, and you have a green room and things like that, you could stick one of these cameras in the green room, and then you could zoom in and out and turn it around and whatever, with that ability. So it's kind of cool. So then we get to the recording settings. Local recording has been a massive one, and probably the key reason that we wanted to get settings available for people is specifically the default is that you can cloud record, but you can't local record. Doing a local record for Zoom, as it sounds, is recording to the computer that it's on, and it records whatever setting that you've got on the computer at the time. If you've got a gallery view on, that's the recording it gets. You've got active speaker set to that computer, that's what it gets. And then there are some other software some kind of advanced level software that uses Zoom local recording that makes it available for people, particularly the ones that are on enterprise plan with Obvio, that can access this now, local recording. So we just have to be careful with that as well, because some people will want to do a cloud recording and a local recording potentially, which the easiest way to do that is to have two different computers or two different devices that are logging in to do that, because from one computer you can't local record and cloud record at the same time if there's just one host. So there's a bit of some specifics in there, but most people won't need to local record, but it's available now. And then on those recording settings, the display the display the participant name is set to default on the recordings that you get, the cloud recordings. And so you may wish to turn that off for editing purposes, to not have the name of the person, particularly in the gallery view where you'd see everyone's names there. You may not want to have it on. You can turn that off. And then there's an extra feature that's like specifically for doing lots of editing. This makes the files a bit larger and a little bit more compatible with lots of editing. That's also defaulted off And so if you're just doing basic sort of archive recordings for your events, then you wouldn't need that on. But if you are intending to do lots of editing of your events, then you may choose to have that on. So that's that. So they're the settings. They will, as you can see here, the settings will apply after the room restarts. It won't happen live. It also applies to every room across every area in your event. So it's essentially the full event settings are the same. And so that's Zoom user settings. Have I missed anything, Jason? Jason, have I missed Jason? Yep. Justin, have I missed anything?
Nothing in the Zoom areas. When you create a room, there are some new settings.
Mm-hmm. Let me do this.
Or create a new area, actually, not a regular area.
Right. Yeah. So new area. This is still the same. Do you know one thing I didn't get to, Justin, is the fact that we've got a question but then a checkbox. It's just like, so if the check means yes to the answer the question, or I'm just checking the question.
We're just consistent.
That's right. It is consistent. So requires approval. This is something that will likely disappear in the future because we don't necessarily need it right now, but we're leaving it there at the moment. It does technically mean if you turn this off, technically means that people can join the meeting without. They still need to register. Registration is still set for the Zoom meeting, but they'll be allowed to get in. It'll be auto approved essentially, and then they can get into the meeting. Whereas the default is that it's on. It requires approval, meaning it requires it to go through Obvio, the person to go through Obvio to be able to access the meeting. We could do a bit more explanation on that one, but multiple devices is the same. We've always had that there, but that's literally that the same person could join the same Zoom meeting multiple times. When they click on the link from the dashboard, that launches Zoom. If they then went on another device with their same Obvio login and went again, if this is off, they'll get a message that says you're already joined and they won't be able to join. Or if it's on, they'll be able to join as many times as they like. So the default is that it's off, and generally we prefer that it's off. You kind of don't want someone to be able to share their login link with 5 of their friends, and now they all come in as now we've got 5 Justins in the room. 1 Justin is more than enough. So the thing with that is that there are certain circumstances, and an example of that is like you're doing a craft building workshop, and what you'd really like is for people to be able to join maybe with their phone as well as their computer, and now their phone can show a top-down view of what they're doing, and so you're allowing people to join multiple times to the meeting, and that works well.
And
this is a big one. Sorry, yep.
Grant, another scenario for that one is the tech check. Many times I've had people that can't get their computer working, they join on the phone, and literally we're helping them troubleshoot, and they turn the camera around.
Good one.
To try to troubleshoot what's going on with their computer. So it's really helpful to allow multiple devices for that tech check-in room.
Good call. Yeah. That's a great use case for it. Enable Zoom Q&A was another huge one that we've been asked a lot for, and we're going to get into a little bit more. Ben, I hope you've got a bit of time, but we'll get to Q&A, how we do Q&A in the larger events. But for single room Zoom events, the Q&A functionality is actually quite powerful within Zoom, and it means that people can post questions into a separate place in Zoom that's not the chat, and it now can be managed. And so you can see all the questions there, and you can, once this is enabled there, you get a few options in Zoom as to whether people can see the other questions and if they can vote them up and down and things like that. So there is a few options for Q&A, which can be really helpful. Enable language interpretation, which is that you can set, once you're in Zoom, you can set different people to be translators or interpreters, and you can now have, which you could always have, we're just making it available a bit more here, where there's the option for, it's kind of like multiple audio streams that people can listen to. So I could set it that that Justin is the French interpreter and Ben is the Italian interpreter. And now when people come in, it's the standard set to English or the default language for your event. And then each attendee can choose to listen to, I want to listen to Justin doing the French interpretation. And so that's just a setting now that we're just making a bit more available, easier to turn on and off. And sign language is similar in that you can say that this person is the sign language interpreter, and it now it pops up an extra box in Zoom, and the attendees can move that box around wherever they wish to be able to see the sign language interpretation. So that is those ones. I think that's the there's no further ones for rooms, right? It's all just areas and users.
Correct.
Yep.
And Grant, since you created a new room for us, you can also get to demonstrate one of the other bugs that we fixed, that now you can go to the tech check-in page or the dashboard in your new area will show up in the drop-downs without you having to keep refreshing until it magically showed. It'll instantly show onto those other pages.
Okay. As in once you're in, if it was set to tech check, once you're in the room.
Yeah, so any place that, like any buttons, any place where we ask you for a Zoom area, every time you create one now, it won't instantly be updated in those drop-downs, where before kind of had to do the shift refresh and get it to clear some cache, and then it would magically show.
Nice. Good one. Great. Anything else? What else have we got?
The other one I would call out is if you go under attendee labels and you go to add a new label and put a rule on it, or edit that one, either way.
Mm-hmm.
And click on visibility rules. Before, it just had a back button. And if you put all your rules in here and saved, and like, I saved my rule, and then you click the X, it doesn't actually save the rule.
Save.
Nope.
Yeah.
And so now, instead of it saying back, it says finish editing the label. Well, to try to help us all know that it's not just a back button, but you actually need to go back and do the editing.
Yeah, that is better.
Yeah, I think every one of us has at least once accidentally put our rules in and then not had them save.
Yep. Totally. Beautiful.
And then the only other one that I would call out is if you've put a countdown timer on the dashboard. The countdown timer used to flash every time the dashboard would refresh and the countdown timer was being shown. You would see that the timer would disappear, the space would be reclaimed, and all of a sudden it would reappear and push everything down. And now it just stays there. Once it has data, it just continues to stay until your countdown timer hits 0, and then it will disappear.
Beautiful.
And those are the big ones. There's some little quality of life.
Couple little ones, yeah.
Life ones, but nothing that most people will end up running into. Those are the big ones.
Yeah. Great. Okay. So we're going to just have a quick look at.
Let me be the first to say, nice work, team. I know what
Thanks,
you
buddy.
and it's not. I don't take it lightly, like because the way Avio, um, there's a lot I imagine that has to go into being able to enable these settings and then have them take effect. There's a back and forth that happens into the Zoom admin interface, and so I know there's a lot. It took a lot to pull this off, so just wanted to say thank you.
Appreciate that. Yeah, there is, because we've always been trying to maintain the security aspect of the way that we're sort of securing Zoom without requiring Zoom passwords and Zoom accounts and all of that sort of stuff. To be able to manage the multiple users that we have, and users and rooms and meetings, all of that. Yes, there was a bit to it. But we really wanted to make it available that people weren't having to ask for, can you turn on local recording, or can you turn on Q&A for this one, or whatever it is. We want people to be able to do that themselves. And so, yeah, it's one we've been thinking about and planning for some time. So go team, go. All right. So we're just going to have a little dive into Q&A specifically for larger events, multiple room events. So we've actually got it set up on this event that we're in. And so, Ben, you were saying that you have played around a little bit with forms. Is that right? And starting to think about Q&A across multiple rooms?
Yeah, so we had an event just this past, what is it, December, early December, between the 5th and 7th, where they had a bunch of forms set up. And I'm wondering about, so not so much for that one, but for future ones where they want to grab Q&A questions from, say, there's maybe 20 or more rooms, Zoom rooms,
Yep.
where it's a mix of English and potentially translated Zoom rooms as well,
Okay.
where they would like to have, say, one of the presenters being able to see all of these questions come in from all these different rooms and being able to pick, okay, I want to answer this person's question next up while I'm on stage, sort of deal.
Brilliant. Yep. It's exactly what we've got set up. So I think you posted a little question into the form. What you're seeing here is the form that we've got for this specific question, which was simply just that it's called Obvio questions, and that the form itself, or the is simply, the form has one question in it, and the question happens to be, what is your question? And so it's just a long answer text question, and that's it. So as far as setting up, it's depending on what you wanted to ask people, right? But at least that it was just simply that is what the single form question is. But the genius is where, when we come back into forms and we go here to moderation, when we look at this, now you can see that we have these sort of three categories for questions. Incoming, so questions are dropping in here. And then you can drag these around, right? So it could be, ideally, with a larger event, you may have some team members that are in as admin into the Obvio backend, and they're able to moderate and say, yeah, that's a question we want. And they could delete a question, that wasn't relevant, whatever. Say, yeah, I want that one. And then you can say, like it is here on deck, is to say, this is coming up next. And what you have here across all of them, you can have a view, a couple of different views. So a stage view here is a dedicated output that just shows the questions on deck. This could be opened up on an iPad. it could be in the studio there. You could just be pushing that to a screen in front of the host. However you wanted to do it. You've got a delete, you've got a sort of done or delete and option there. And this would show multiples if we were to put Muddies in there too. Then that just updates and shows as many as you like. What you may have seen there that could be of interest to you guys too is the lower third option. And so with lower third, it is as it sounds. You can customize this as a lower third, and you could bring that into your production setup and have it overlaid on the output to show the question as it pops up. Did you know that this was? Yeah. Did you know it was built in there? Did you know we had that?
I actually just discovered this like as I was looking into it before this
Yeah,
call.
you're
I was
playing
like,
around,
that,
right?
that is really cool.
Yeah.
I can see it definitely using this, especially so we have this realtor event, and that specifically what they're looking for is something like this, which is really good.
Yep. Yeah, it works perfectly for exactly the use case. And the point is that you're doing it across multiple rooms. I mean, even if you were doing just one Zoom room and you wanted to do things like the lower third or the moderation process separately from Zoom, you wouldn't want to use the inbuilt Q&A system anyway. You'd want to use this, right?
Right.
And obviously the advantage is too that people don't have to be in Zoom at the time, which means that overnight or whenever, people can be posting questions, and now you've got a whole bunch of content for when the event starts or the day starts. So that's how that works. The way that you might manage languages is that you could do separate buttons or separate forms for different languages. And so now you would have different forms in here for the different languages. And so then that way you could separate them out, moderate them separately, potentially answer them separately, however that would want to happen. Or you could go and have that where you were doing some translation and kind of change the way that the process would be that people are translating them as you go or something, so you could manage it a few different ways. You could do that. It's Q&A. Anything else on that? Does that kind of help you? You've got a few toys to play with there to see how you go.
Yeah, that definitely gives me and Larry a few things to play with for that, to see how we can make that with clients. I think that's exactly what we're looking for when we ran into this past client, for sure. It'll be huge for us.
Yeah, and I think you're probably already aware of the options of how with a form, you can tie it to a button like that, or you can have a form inline. See this? That's an example there. So you could have it, and that's where it's tied to a blog post. So rather than it being tied to a button, it's tied to a blog post. In this example, I've got a blog post that has no other text in it. It's just got poll time. And then I've come to attachment form, and the form is called poll. And so then I've said, I don't want it to open in a modal. If I want it to open in a modal, now it'll pop up as a window. But if I don't say that, then it puts it in line and keeps it there nice and simple. And so that can be helpful for Q&A, where you literally just have the Q&A, the question box right there, and keep it really obvious for people. This is where you ask questions. You don't have to click anything, just type in and post. Okay. Yeah. So that's how that can work. And of course, because it's a blog post or a button, visibility rules work everywhere. It could be that only VIPs get to ask questions, or a certain group of people can ask, or they can only ask. There's a session that's only for VIPs, and that's where they could ask questions for that specific session. So it's like stacking some of the features that we've got in Obvio to make that work. Cool. So that's Q&A and forms. So the other thing you mentioned was talking about, Muddy, you want to add to that?
Yeah, and I'm on the road, so I'm going to keep my camera off to make sure my audio comes through. But we've had events where VIPs, one of the benefits is priority questions. And so we've had 2 buttons on the dashboard. If you're VIP, you see one of them. If you're not VIP, you see the other. And both of them are the same use case. It brings up a form, but now we've got 2 form moderation pages in the back end, and we make sure that we ask all the VIP questions before we go to the other. So just confirming the use case.
Yeah, that's cool. Very nice.
Yeah.
Keeps it very simple for the users as well. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so then talking about translation, multiple languages. So at the moment, Ben, you would assign different rooms within an area to different languages. Is that how you're doing it? And then using rules to assign people to those rooms, or are they different areas?
Correct. Yeah. Yeah, that's how I have it now. And then on the dashboard itself, how I have it for translations, I don't add the translations how it is on the dashboard. I actually have like a Google Translate script that translates everything on the dashboard.
Yeah, fair enough. That's an easy way to do it. If you're not doing custom text, and so we have, if you were going down the line where it was super important that it was that someone chose the words, every word, and that was very specific words for every language, then that's how we would use our language interpretation. But yeah, there's some cool stuff out there that you can just have Google Translate do it, and it works fine. So that's cool. But yeah, so someone wants to move themselves, go from one room to another they want to go to a different language. The process actually there's a couple of different things, a couple of different ways. If you were using the inbuilt translation option, then as you may have seen it, you get they get a selector at the bottom that they can choose the language, and that the language that they choose is stored as a kind of like as a group, and that group field, when they change it, can be used to filter which room they go into. So in theory, what it means is if they were in Zoom and they were in the French room and they decided, actually, I just want to go back to English. If they went back to the dashboard, they changed their language to English. When they then click on the button again, it would send them into English because their language has changed, if you're using the language selector as the way that it is filtering them into the different rooms. Now, I'm not suggesting that that's the best approach. I'm just saying that's how the language selector works. That it's setting the language, and that language can be accessed as a filter when you're filtering people into rooms. My gut feeling is that I probably would, if you're having this a lot, I probably would have multiple areas, and so I'd set different areas for the languages, and have all the language buttons available on the dashboard.
Yeah, I'm thinking that might be the easiest and most straightforward solution as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. So you might have, 10 English rooms and then you've got 4 Spanish rooms and whatever. So now they're just, instead of them all being in one area as the main stage, they're now in separate areas. English has 10 area, the next area, Spanish has 4, Italian has 2, whatever it is. Now I've got separate areas. And then you could have all those buttons there. For some people, I wonder whether, in the way that you're kind of doing it now, instead of filtering at the room level, once they've clicked, you could filter what they see on their dashboard. So you know that they're Spanish speaking. You give them the Spanish button to join main stage Spanish, but also here's the English button as well. So
Okay.
potentially they don't have the option for Italian and French because that's not who they are, but they do have 2 options, Espanol and English. You know what I mean? It was like, here we go. We've got, instead of confusing them with every language, you could have, yeah. So it depends on the data that you have about them as to whether you know that they may want that option. So there's always a trade-off of convenience and keeping it really clear that people are pressing random buttons and now they're in the French room and they're not at all French and they're like, what is this? That type of thing. So they're the sorts of things that's the direction that I would go down, is trying to think. It depends how many languages you're offering for each of the events too, but I like the idea that they kind of have English is there as is available, but that their native language is there and there's not lots of options. It's just 2 options.
Yeah, I like that
So
as well, especially because AI translation isn't always the greatest. It's very dependent on the speakers. Some speakers will speak with sentences, and then others will be rushing through it, and AI doesn't know what to do exactly with their translations. So I
right,
do I do like that idea where, oh, I don't like this translation right now. I'm just going to jump into the English room for now.
yeah, yep. Um, just so another thing to just consider as well. See how when I'm hovering over these buttons, right, you can see how down in the bottom left of the window is the actual link. And it's an area link with a token, essentially, that links to what that area is. That link can be used directly for people. Here's the caveat: is that once they're logged into Obvio, right? So once they've come through the dashboard, Obvio puts a cookie on the system that essentially keeps them in for a year or something. Like it's a long expiry, right? So 2 things that are helpful often with large events is, and you probably already do this, but one of the things that you can do is, like, in the chat, we do this sometimes where we're saying, hey, if you want to ask a question, go to, you see that in the chat that I just put in, go to update.obv.io or whatever the domain is for the event. Everyone that clicks that are going to get the dashboard. The dashboard's going to pop straight up for them, right? Logged in as them, because they couldn't have got into Zoom if they hadn't been through the dashboard, which means they're logged into the dashboard, which means we don't have to give individual tokens out to people. We can just give that general link and it's going to take them there. Well, same goes for those area links. So I'm just saying this because you could have an English, like as an example, the English area, you could, in the non-English speaking rooms, you could just post every now and again, hey, if you would like to go to the English room, click here.
Okay.
That, right? They click that button, it would just basically take them to the loading screen on the Obvio dashboard, assign them to that room, and then for 99% of the people that don't have a corporate Zoom account, it's going to say, would you like to leave and join? You know, you're trying to join another meeting. Would you like to leave this one and join that one? And so that's actually a really seamless process to go from Spanish room to the English room, bouncing through the Obvio dashboard, and them not having to click anything apart from the link in the chat. So it's just another idea that could work for people. So
yeah, that could be very handy as well.
Yeah. If Muddy, something on that?
Well, I was thinking around room assignments. And so I think the idea of having separate areas for languages helps eliminate the issue that they've been assigned to room 4, for instance, which is a Spanish room. And even if the room assignment, if the language was based on rooms and they choose a different room, they might still go back to that unless you cleared room assignment. So areas, doing it by areas really solves another potential problem that might come up.
Yeah, it does. I mean, as I was talking before about it, I was trying to think through the advantages of having all rooms in one area. And it certainly is, if you have 10 languages that you're managing, you now have to have 10 buttons that you're managing, and you've now got these 10 buttons and you're doing all these visibility rules. Obviously, as you're doing it at the moment, you've got one area, one button, you set up those rules to assign them to the rooms, and now it's done. And that's the reason that we did it for that, is to be able to assign VIPs to the first 3 rooms or whatever it is. Keep that really simple. But yeah, it's a little bit of a trade-off. It gets a little more complicated managing some buttons on the dashboard, but makes it really easy. It means that you're not doing anything during the show. You're not having to, run a help desk to try to help people get back into an English room or whatever it is. So
right.
There's always a trade-off of stuff. And we often think about what are the things that we can do pre-show. What are the scheduling that we can do? What's the, extra buttons that we've already got set up ready for the welcome meeting or the whatever it is. That's always the preference, is to be able to, set up those before the event days. So cool. Clear as mud.
Cool. Yeah, that's definitely very helpful. I'm looking forward to bringing that back.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. Anything else you're kicking around, or?
Not right now, but I'm sure I'll run into other stuff as I play around. I know I'm not sure who it is that receives my messages when I shoot to support, but I'm sure I'll have a couple more when I run into things.
Yeah, great. Yeah, James takes the lion's share of those in the chat, and Justin and I are in there as well, keeping an eye on things. And so often when it gets a bit more into the Zoom world, then I'll jump in, or Justin will jump in, and we'll, but we keep an eye on all of that. So that's the best place to do. help@obv.io for everyone that's listening. That's the place to push through any of these sorts of questions. But we're also always here every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern. So cool.
Cool.
I think, let's see. I think, Amelia, you might have had something in the questions there. Coming. Okay. What image file is best? Oh, yeah, I saw this. You were having some trouble uploading. And is that still happening?
Yeah, I mean, the sales portion of my challenge is over, but even up to like day 1, maybe even day 2 of it, when people went to look at the sales page, of Marketplace, it was like, what? Where are the images? Okay. Like, I even had somebody who had gone there before re-pull it up and say, where'd all the images go? Where'd they go? What happened to them? And then after I went and looked, I'm like, they're there. What's up? And then going back, and she's like, oh, yeah, it finally showed up. So there was like some really, I don't know if it's the size of the images. Like, so I just, any kind of parameters about what file types, what size, just to help. There was even one, let me pull up the comment of, hang on a second, I have it in there was one who was like, here, try these. They were AVI files, or let's see, hang on a second. Yeah. It's like he downloaded the images and put them into JPEGs. Well, I uploaded them as JPEGs, and he said his program may automatically convert them to AVIs. Unfortunately, something appears to be going wrong in that conversion right now, causing them to load painfully slow.
That's what James said. Is that what you?
No, that's no. What this is in another in Jeff Walker's Launch Club. And so the coaches there were pulling it up and like going, that's helpful. Like and one of the coaches actually went on there, waited for all of them to come up, saved them and converted them to JPEGs. Because they downloaded as AVIs.
Okay. Have you got which event is this one that you've got this attached to?
Booty Wiggle Challenge.
Okay, yeah.
6401.
Gotcha. Let me have a look here. So it's just all the images?
Yeah, it's the initial comes up okay, the YouTube comes up okay, and the picture of me I think comes up okay, but the coffee mug, the woman with the big ornament, that one's the one that I've noticed it like the whole time. That one was always one that came up slow. And I made that by 1080 by 1080 JPEG. I was trying other things. I was like, next thing I'm going to try and do is a web app or WebP, whatever yeah.
Are you seeing this
too? I can send you the original files that I uploaded.
I am not seeing the same thing, but I was not able to preview Amelia's event page either.
That's what I was just saying.
Yeah, it was
now looking. I was looking at the public side.
Yeah, I was trying to look at the public side, just play with it while we were waiting, and there's some Stripe error in the console.
Interesting.
But I'm not getting that same thing on a new marketplace page that I created, so I'm not totally sure. But to answer a bit of the question, smallest size that you need is best. If you're only going to display it at 50 by 50, don't upload a 10,000 by 10,000 image. Like, it'll just load slower from file size and everything.
Yeah,
but
that's well. I mean, I didn't know,
exactly.
So I'm just like,
fair enough.
Yeah, fair enough. And I just know sometimes we get like headshots back from photographers. It's like 5,000 by 5,000. We just upload it. And it's like a 7 meg file. It's like smaller's better. You can also, I'll drop this in the chat. You can also try running it through something like this compressed JPEG website. Sometimes make sure you check out the images if you run it through it, because sometimes it over compresses them and then they look terrible. But like 95% of the time they still look good and they shrink the file size a decent amount. And that we support JPEGs and PNGs and
The WebP, I know it's supposed to make the files really small, but still look good. But that's why I was just kind of like, I have the technology. I can make them whatever file type you want them
I was
to
going to
be.
say, you know what you're doing with this stuff. I feel like file size of the upload that you're messing around with might be 20% of the problem. 80% of the problem here is something else is funky is going on that we need to look into.
Cool.
Like rule of thumb would be that PNGs are really good for graphics, for text, for the logos, things like that you want to be really sharp, and then JPEGs are really good for photos and things that will compress quite well. They'll be a bit smaller than PNGs, and so they will load a bit faster. But as I said, I don't think there's something else that's a little funky that's happening there. I'm not seeing any AVI or anything other than PNG. Like when I'm opening those images from the page and looking at the image itself, it is PNG.
Okay, so I think because that's one of the things I did was changed them from JPEGs to PNGs. The skater, which is that big red blurry motion thing. That was a JPEG. The peppermint cocoa, I've got both a JPEG and a PNG that I probably tried. And changing it from a bigger to a smaller, just trying to cut down the file size type.
I know.
Trying everything.
Yeah. I'm sorry that you've had this trouble, and we hadn't seen this. I'm wondering, Justin, I know that we're processing the images on the fly as we serve them. They're not just being served, sort of from S3 or whatever. They're actually being processed, and I think that's in part trying to ironically get the load time to be as fast as possible. And I think it actually is trying to resize the image on the fly to make them as small as possible. But perhaps something's not quite working optimally. Optimal is not optimal. And
is correct.
So we can have a look. We could have a look at that. Mike might be able to see what's going on there. Well, yeah, we will look into it, Amelia. Sorry that you're having that trouble, and yeah, it's not you. It's not you, it's me. So
I have people that are attending, so it's going on.
Great, good work, well done. All right. Anything else, Amelia? All happy?
I'm actually gonna hop off and go hang out with my grandbaby. So
good work.
Thanks, guys. Nice. Appreciate your time. And I'll see you next time.
Happy holidays.
You too. Bye.
All right, Muddy. Question?
Forms? All right, I've got a question I think I know the answer to, but I figured I would ask it anyway. So we have an event. My question is about the ability to manage tags or edit tags for multiple people at once within Obvio. And the use case, real quick, is we have an event this is the second year for the event, and we want to keep people in. So if you came last year, you are granted permission to come again this year. But we have some tags from last year, like they attended room 1, or they attended day 1, attended day 2, and it's causing a little bit of confusion for the host. Like, how did they have the attended day 1 when we haven't even had the event yet? And so I wanted to go in and just like clear out some tags. And I know that I don't have kind of like a spreadsheet edit view of the attendees. I'd have to go into the attendees one by one. So I think the best way to do this would be and it's like 40 people, so it's not a massive issue, but I want to think about what works large would mean that I would export all of the attendees in that CSV file. I would clean up the tags field however I need to, and then re-import. As long as there wasn't some integration that was going to update that automatically, I could re-import that, making sure I don't import fields that I don't need, like their login URL, for instance, but just export it, clean it up offline, and import it back. Does that sound like the right way to handle a situation like this?
Yep, I think it is. Particularly if there's no integration connected at all, and we're just talking about Obvio tags, then yeah, that would be the process, because we sort of purposely haven't built out bulk change functionality, like bulk tag edits, or that sort of stuff, because generally once we're talking bulk, generally we've got an integration connected, and you can do it there. Like you could filter in an integration, a CRM. You could filter a list and then say, make this change to all of these people.
Yeah, good point. If they have the event registration tag, then surface those people and remove, the day one tag or whatever.
All
yeah,
that.
good point.
Yeah. Remove day one and change it to day one 2024 or whatever it was, right? Like, you could make a new tag that was just for that year or something like that if you wanted to maintain it. But yeah, in general, I mean, you want to be careful, because when you export out, any tags that you update, then will delete tags that are not, it sort of replaces everything when you do that import again. And so that's how it will replace all the tags for that person with whatever tags you've put in as the new ones.
That's right. Yeah, and in that,
Which
the
is what you want.
challenge is, if there are multiple tags, they're all in one field, and so it becomes a little bit of a pain to, comma separate those into multiple fields, find the one you're looking for, collapse them again. Yeah, that's part of the reason I was asking, because I know it can get a little bit messy when I've had to do this in mass with multiple tags.
It can be, but ChatGPT is your big friend right there, because you can say exactly what you want. You give it the CSV file, and then just say, in this tags field, any day one attended tag, replace with day one attended 25, and change that tag out, or change whatever tags you want. And you may need to say that the column is a CSV column, but it'll do it perfectly for you. Once you get that right, it'll spit back out a CSV file for you, and it'll be ready to go.
That's brilliant. I never considered using ChatGPT for that.
Oh, dude, it's mind-blowing how great that works. So as complicated as you want to make it, it'll do it, and give you that CSV file back. So, I mean, you can also give it, like, here's the export, which we know has some extra columns in them that you don't need. You could then give it essentially a blank CSV file of the format that you want it in, and then say, these are the changes I want made, and I want a CSV file at the end. And 30 seconds later, it's done for you. So
Bob's your uncle. Yeah, love it.
Exactly. Bob's your auntie's husband. So yeah, I would play around with that. So it's often any of those sorts of tasks now is where I think in terms of, can AI do this for me? Chances are yes, and more accurately. Yeah. Cool. All right. Anyone else? Nancy's popped on. Hey, Nancy.
Just I was multitasking. Can you hear me?
Can you hear me? I can hear you. Yeah. I can hear you. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was in another Zoom meeting saying, well, I want to listen. I have a beginner question.
I like those.
The question is that when, like Tony Robbins has, I don't know, 100,000 people showing up to a thing. How do you do the Zooms? I mean, do you just have like 7 Zoom accounts or something?
You said this was a beginner question?
I'm trying to always visualize how that works.
This is a beginner question, you said?
Yeah.
You're like, how do I manage my 100,000 people in my event? This is just a beginner question.
Well, I crew for Tony Robbins every so often, so I'm always curious how that works.
Yeah. So often, sorry, just 1 second. Just 1 second. So firstly, generally in those events, there'll be a whole bunch of people that are in YouTube. There's really large scale, often free events. Most people are in YouTube. And then there will still be, tens of thousands, maybe, 10, 20, 30,000 people that are in Zoom that have paid for VIP. And this is kind of what Ben deals with day in, day out is large scale events across multiple Zoom meetings. And that's really where Obvio was built. It's like it was one of the key requirements for Obvio right from the start was how do we manage multiple Zoom meetings and make it feel as though it's one meeting, because there's a limit of you can have 1,000 people in a Zoom meeting. Zoom has added 3,000 people and 5,000 I think as well, but it's super expensive, and so the 1,000 is still working well for us. So the way that it works in Obvio is that we want 20 Zoom meetings. They're all different Zoom accounts, and we then have them all in an area, in a Zoom area, in Obvio, which considers that to be one group, a group of Zoom meetings. And now when an attendee comes and they click on the same button, everyone has the same button, they click on that button. What Obvio does is goes and looks at how many people are in all of those rooms, and based on even some extra advanced filtering and things that you can do, but it will say, okay, there are 20 rooms and they've all got roughly 300 people in them. But the room with the lowest number of people, there's a room with 290 people. I'm going to assign this person there now. And so then it's constantly keeping an eye on how many people are in each room, and it tries to load balance them, like it keeps the number, roughly the same depending on how quickly people come in. And so that's just how it works. So then from an Obvio point of view, we're sort of handling the attendee process, getting them assigned into a Zoom meeting. But then from a production point of view, from an audio and video point of view, Obvio doesn't help with that. That's a studio thing. And so I think at like a Tony Robbins studio, they call it the Apple Orchard, the Orchard, because it's just a whole bunch of iMacs that are all running, like 40 or so. Ben, how many have you got at the studio? Is it about that?
I know Eric Wara, he's worked with Tony Robbins. So we have our Zoom, I can't remember what Larry calls it. But we have, I think it's like 50 max set up.
Yeah.
So we got one row 25, another row of 25, and that's just for managing Zoom. And then we have our production side on the other side, feeding audio into Zoom and all that. So yeah, we have about 50 max set up to handle
That's cool.
the Zooms.
Yeah, it's super cool. Yeah, so now it's an individual computer. each one of those computers has its own audio and video setup, and now it's sending in audio and video into each one of those rooms. And so then from the attendees' point of view, they're joining a meeting that may have 600-700 people in it. And then that just adds up to tens of thousands of people once you have them across multiple Zoom meetings. So yeah, it's a key feature of Obvio is scaling above one Zoom meeting.
Yeah, it's fascinating to me, and I've just been watching how that all works and wondering. So thank you. I just
Sure.
I'm sure the coding was interesting to do for that.
Yeah, it was planning the logic of all of that, and that really was, from day one is sort of planning how that would all work, and managing what is complex about something like Obvio is where the web servers that we have to have, is like it can go from having 5 people looking at the website to 15,000 people within a couple of minutes, and so having all of the infrastructure ready to just serve 15,000 people straight away that's a big challenge. So that's been fun along the last 5 years of playing around with it.
Does Tony have a backup generator?
Yeah, there's lots of that all around the place. Backup internet, backup power, yeah, all of that. Yeah. Cool.
Thank you.
No worries. Anyone else? Other questions?
Grant, I'm going to swing back to Amelia's. I sent her a message for this, but Marketplace is working just fine. Fine, actually.
Okay.
So I got her Marketplace page working. She actually has several images, including the backgrounds, that are 2 to 3 megs in size each. So it's downloading 30 to 60 megs worth of content, depending on if you have caching. And on slower connections, I think that's contributing to taking some time to load images. I'm also noticing it appears like the browser might be just giving up the ghost a little bit as it's downloading them and saying, nope, You've downloaded enough. I let her know. But Marketplace itself is going great.
Okay, cool. All right, so it is to do with file sizes.
Yep.
Cool. All right.
We better end this really quick because I noticed Kevin joined.
That's right. We got this. You get me on the soapbox again. We'll start talking about hybrid events.
Before we let Kevin talk about that, though, we haven't talked about the Zoom update that came out this week. I don't know if you've tried it at all.
Oh yeah, I haven't played around with it yet. What have you?
I have. It's on this particular computer, and they moved.
Hey, for all the
settings
all the kids
around
out there, what version is that, Justin?
That's a great question. Whatever the one that came out this week.
No,
it's like
it's
6.7.
6.7.
Yeah, that's what I said.
6.7.
I was setting you up.
He was.
I had to think hard about it. Yep. And they really did move all the stuff around. Like all the host tools that normally we would click on it just once and then uncheck the boxes that we want and click on it again and keep going. Now they're all kind of hidden in a little menu. It pops up like the chat pops up, and then you get to go through various settings there. They're kind of categorized in there, so it takes a little bit more time. One cool feature I noticed that I don't know if it's been there for a while or if it just came out, that is when you were sharing your screen earlier, I happened to hit the mouse wheel, and also they had a zoom in, zoom out little box show up over the screen share, and I could actually zoom it in all the way up to 300% or down to like 50%.
Oh, that's interesting.
I had not seen that before. And it also worked with the normal control plus, control minus, or command plus, command minus to actually zoom that window in as well.
Okay.
That was super handy when you were sharing, because the screen was a little far away and I was struggling to read it at the distance I had it at.
Mm.
And then they just kind of reorged how all the settings work. Like all the settings that used to pop up in dialogues now pop up like the chat pops up. So no longer does it sit over the top of your Zoom. It just sits in the little dock where the chat's at, so you can make all your settings changes while still being able to actually see the screen for the meeting itself.
I have to do a bit of a deep dive into it, or watch
which has
Zoom
pros and
test
cons.
kitchen. Yeah, it
Yeah, we looked through some of these in the test kitchen before they were coming, because Zoom put out a white paper that showed some of these UI changes. And my understanding is it's not really a lot of feature changes, but it is a massive UI change related to the Zoom toolbar, especially how the More button works. So when you click the More button, you now have icons. You have kind of a almost a little gallery view of icons that go with each of those. So I think that's going to be a big advantage. And as Justin mentioned, the settings, when you go into Zoom settings, you used to get a dialog box that popped up and you could go through the different settings. That is all now a nested sidebar. And some settings are like several layers deep. You've got to like go into a menu, and get to the settings and then back out. The one place, this is a really unique use case, but this is going to be a bit of a when I would do a remote production and I was actually remotely connected to the host's computer and managing their view as well, when they would go on break, I would turn their camera off, but I would open the Zoom settings and pull that down onto the second screen. So because it shows a preview of the camera in the video settings. So that way I could have eyes to know if the host
clever.
was back
Yeah.
before I would, flip their camera back on and come back. So obviously very niche case, but this changes that experience a little bit. All in all, I think it's a positive change, but it will take some getting used to. It's going to be a bit of a learning curve.
Yeah. Okay.
In the one setting I haven't been able to find with the update is where it shows the video resolutions. Like a lot of times we would go look to see like what are we sending, what are we receiving as part of running productions. I haven't seen that where that screen disappeared off to.
Is there not a statistics setting?
I haven't found where it is at yet. I'm sure it's still there. I just haven't found it.
Okay. We'll have a bit of a play around and see.
It would definitely not be the suggestion for production level computers to update it without playing with it first. That's why I did it on this machine, because this is just a meeting machine and not a production machine.
Right. Yeah, I'll have an update and have a play around.
I guess one of the upsides for the learning curve is now that Zoom is forcing, what is it, a quarterly setting or a quarterly version. It's going to be a shorter time until everyone is forced to update than what we used to have, where people had, very old versions that had very different experiences. So, we'll all get through it together.
Totally. I'm just looking at the calendar, thinking about the next 2 weeks. And my gut tells me that we may skip the next two weeks, but that we're always on support. Help at obv.io. We'll keep an eye on that. It feels like a lot of the world sort of shuts down, as for a fair bit of that time, and so we'll just see what people have. But I don't think we'll do Q&A until the 7th of January. We'll come back again then.
Well, this is a beautiful thing about the forum. You can still submit your questions.
100%.
All through that time.
Yep, totally you can. Well, and between the new Zoom update that people can play around with and the Zoom settings in Obvio, there's plenty of things to play around with for the next couple of weeks. And we've got the Facebook group as well. Keep an eye on that. And if anything major, some there's been times where I've been like, someone's asking a particular question about this, and so that we'll just jump in. I've done it on the Facebook group before when we've just said, hey, we're just jumping on and doing a little demo of something or working through a challenge that someone has, and everyone's welcome to join, and so if people are bored at that time, then we and there's a need for that, then we could do that somewhere in the next couple of weeks if it's required. Otherwise, we would be seeing people on the 7th, would be the next one that we do. Cool. Any last minute questions?
I'll submit my question about stagehand for when we come back in 2026.
Yeah, it's still spinning along. In fact, a change that happened in 6.7 is that you can auto launch apps that we're playing around with. So Zoom apps, there's now an option to be able to approve it and then auto launch it. And so in the back of my mind, the idea of being able to have a mini version of the dashboard right in Zoom would be very cool. But there's just a few challenges with that. But Ben, I can imagine that would be, pretty cool for you guys too, right?
Like when you're saying the mini dashboard in Zoom, you can show the dashboard within Zoom without having to show a random attendees dashboard sort of thing.
Yeah,
that would be amazing.
Yeah, like having it like the chat window pane that we have in Zoom. Think of that you've now got another little window pane that is like a mini version of the Obvio dashboard. So access to resources, asking questions, like filling in forms, things like that, would be pretty amazing. We've wanted to do it, but there's a couple of challenges that we've got that prevent us from doing it. And it could be that we're a step closer to it with the new version, but we're still sort of playing around. Having them log in, having it log in is a challenge as well. And so we're just trying to work all that through. But it would be really nice. So instead of telling people, you now need to, Obvio dashboard is behind Zoom, it's like, where, what, having it just right there would be super cool. But one day maybe. Yeah.
All right, I've got one more question.
All right.
Which is you alluded to something that is pretty exciting to me about an area link, like dropping an area link. And the way that this comes up in a 3-day enrollment event is a sales lobby, right? So an offer is made, going to have an enrollment break. Typically, we'll say, go back to the dashboard, click the button that says talk to a program expert. That'll bring you in. And I have wanted a way to basically push someone into a new Zoom room, right? And I can't like I can a breakout room. And so this idea of being able to drop an area link, and of course we could rebrand it with a shortener or something like that, right? So it's like a, saleslobby.com, whatever, we could make that a pretty URL, but it would redirect to that. Where am I finding, I mean, that's not an area direct link, is it? Or do I actually have to create a button, hover over it, and copy the button? Okay.
Yes.
All right, cool.
Yep.
No worries.
Yeah, because there is basically an area ID, a long kind of, it's sort of an encrypted ID is what it is.
I've
So it
seen
looks like
it, but I
it
just
looks like a
wasn't sure where to
token.
grab it from. Yeah.
Yeah. So you can hover over it, even in the dashboard, even in the dashboard editor. I'll just test that. You should be able to copy link address. Yeah. So even when you're in the dashboard editor, when you click on an area and of course it freaks out and doesn't know what to do with it. But when you click on an area button, it'll just open the button settings. But if you right click on it and say copy
Copy the link. Yeah.
Yeah, just copy link address. Then that's what you can use.
And no additional cleaning is needed, right? I don't need to remove anything from that. That is a universal link for anyone.
Yep. And what it does is it takes you to a loading screen. On that loading screen is when it's checking a whole bunch of stuff as to whether the room's open, the areas are open, if they've already been assigned, if they've got all of that stuff. And essentially the last thing that it does is redirects you to the Zoom registration link. That's what it's giving you in the end.
Nice.
Right. And so it's just going to be a loading screen and then into Zoom. So then,
and it's the same loading screen that happens anytime you click an area, click a join button. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah. I hadn't thought of it for that sort of use case, but that could totally work. And as I said, for most people, if you're logged into an account that has multiple Zoom, allowing join multiple Zooms enabled, then you could join multiple Zoom meetings. And some people, would have a corporate account or something where they have that.
That's pretty rare.
It's very, very rare. So for most people it will say leave and join. You're trying to join a new Zoom meeting. Would you like to leave and join? Or cancel.
Yeah, and for that small group of people who are enabled to join multiple Zoom meetings, they know probably how to deal with that anyway, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
The same thing would happen for the celebration lunch, except it wouldn't necessarily be open for everyone, but you could DM that to someone in the chat for, I'm excited. I got something new to play around with.
Yeah, so I mean, you raise a good point in that there's not a check as to whether the person is allowed to access that, right? Because the visibility rule that you might have
is around the button, not around the join permission. Yeah. No worries.
Correct. Yeah. So if you were wanting only for a select group of people, then yes, direct messages and whatever is fine. But I mean, you could also handle it with labels, like you would know whether they're allowed to join or not, and you could do a waiting room or whatever, but sort of defeating the purpose with some of that. But I think
however,
the sales lobby would work.
The one thing that just prompted me in version 6.7, the way that private chat is handled is basically the same, except the UI now will double up to 2 rows of tabs, rather like previously you were like capped out at like 3 or 4 private messages. It'll now create a second row of private messages. So more places to look, but more heads up info.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Good use case. Yeah. Happy holidays, everyone.
Happy holidays.
Cool. Well, thanks for joining. And I'll see, if not before, I'll see you on the 7th. Or at least I'll be here, whether you will be. We'll see you then. Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Right, thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers. Take care.